The cemetery fell silent. Daniel wore the linen shirt I had packed for our delayed anniversary trip. Vanessa wore oversized sunglasses and a white resort dress, as though grief were another occasion she had arrived too late to attend. Their suitcase wheels rattled along the stone path, a grating, rhythmic scraping against the silence of the grieving crowd. "Traffic from the airport," Vanessa said, breathless but not shattered. "Where is she?" I stared at her, my voice cold and hollow. "In the coffin," her lips parted, a momentary flash of shock crossing her face before. Daniel stepped smoothly between us. "Man, not here. Not here." As though there were a better place to explain why. Sofia had spent her final 6 hours wondering whether her mother was coming. She had collapsed at school from complications related to the heart condition. Vanessa treated like an inconvenience. For years, I had taken Sofia to appointments, memorized her medication schedule, and stayed beside her after surgeries while Vanessa attended parties, traveled, and called motherhood bad timing. When Sofia collapsed, the hospital called Vanessa 59 times. I called 68. Texts showed delivered. Voicemails piled up. One message from me said, "She may not make it through the hour." Vanessa never responded. Sofia did not spend her final moments alone. I held her little hand, while alarms sounded and doctors worked, desperately to stabilize, a heartbeat already fading. "Tell Mom I wasn't scared," she had whispered, her fingers loosening in mine as the monitor went flat. That was the final promise I ever made to a child. At the graveside, Vanessa placed a manicured hand against her chest and produced one polished tear. "My phone was stolen on the beach," she whimpered. Daniel nodded far too quickly, his eyes avoiding mine. "Mine too." It was a complete dead zone. We had no idea. Behind him, a bright blue airline tag dangled from his suitcase. St. Lucia. It was the same island listed on the hotel confirmation. I had discovered that morning inside our shared cloud account. 1 oceanfront suite. 2 guests. 6 nights. Reserved 3 months earlier, right when Daniel claimed he had an urgent solo business retreat and Vanessa was visiting a spa in Sedona. Vanessa reached a hand toward me. We can explain." I stepped back, out of her reach. Everyone expected me to shout. Vanessa had spent years describing me as soft, helpful, easy to manipulate. At family dinners, she joked that I was the emergency contact with a bank account. Daniel always laughed the loudest. He believed silence meant surrender because I had spent years settling debts, smoothing over arguments, and quietly keeping our lives intact. They had no idea that before leaving for the funeral, I had downloaded every reservation, bank transfer, deleted message, and security alert. They also had no idea that my quiet day job as a senior forensic accountant meant I knew exactly how to track every cent, every lie, and every digital footprint a person left behind. I looked at the 2 people who had mistaken my heartbreak for weakness. "Bury your daughter first," I said softly, my voice carrying clearly over the open grave. "Then we'll discuss what else you buried." The funeral proceeded in a tense, suffocating haze. Vanessa attempted a dramatic display of sorrow, collapsing against Daniel's shoulder as the casket was lowered, but the crowd's eyes were cold. People had seen the luggage. They saw the golden tans, the crisp linen, and the unmistakable air of 2 people caught entirely off guard. When the service ended, Daniel pulled me aside by the arm. His touch felt like ice. "Emma, stop making a scene," he hissed under his breath. "Vanessa is grieving. This isn't the time for whatever crazy conspiracy you're spinning." "My office," I replied, my tone flat. "In 2 hours. Bring your key." "What?" "2 hours, Daniel. Or the evidence goes to the police and the IRS before the sun sets." I turned and walked away, leaving him standing beside my sister in the middle of the cemetery. 2 hours later, they walked into our living room. Vanessa had changed into black slacks, trying to look the part of a mourning mother, while Daniel looked agitated, his hands shoved deep into his pockets. All right, Emma, enough, Daniel demanded, pacing the floor. You've had your moment. You humiliated us at the graveyard. I laid a heavy black folder on the coffee table. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Sit down, I said. Vanessa rolled her eyes, though her hands trembled as she pulled out a chair. Emma, if this is about your marriage or some pathetic jealousy. Sofia's medical trust, I interrupted. Vanessa froze. Mom and Dad left Sofia a $1.2 million trust for her medical care, I said, opening the folder to reveal neat, color-coded spreadsheets. As her legal guardian, Vanessa was the trustee. But 3 years ago, funds started moving. $50,000. Here, $100,000 there. Transferred directly into shell accounts registered in the Caribbean. That was for her treatments. Vanessa snapped, her voice pitching high. Sofia's treatments were covered by the supplemental policy I paid for, I replied, looking her dead in the eye. The money from her trust was routed to an investment firm owned by Daniel. Daniel went pale. Vanna, listen to me. I listened to Sofia die while you were sipping cocktails in St. Lucia. I cut in, my voice dead calm. Listened to her ask for her mother while you were sleeping in my husband's bed. I threw a second set of documents onto the table. Photographs, flight manifests, bank logs showing Daniel liquidating our joint savings to fund their luxury getaways, framing it as failed business investments. You didn't just abandon her, I whispered, the sheer cruelty of it finally settling into the room. You let her miss her specialist appointments because you were using her medical transport fund to pay for your private charter flights. Vanessa's facade shattered. You can't prove that. I'm a forensic accountant, Vanessa. I spent 15 years tracing cartels and corporate fraud for the federal government. Tracing 2 narcissistic amateurs took me 3 hours. I pulled out my phone and placed it next to the folder. On this drive is every wire transfer, every text message between the two of you planning how to sell the house out from under me, and the call log showing 127 ignored calls while Sofia was in cardiac arrest. Daniel took a step back, panic bleeding through his neat composure. Emma, please, we can talk about this. We're family. Family died in that hospital room, I said. I picked up my bag and walked toward the front door. Where are you going? Daniel yelled, his voice cracking. I paused at the doorway, looking back at the two of them, surrounded by the paper trail of their own destruction. The district attorney's office, I said quietly. Sofia wanted her mother to know she wasn't scared. I'm making sure you are. I walked out, closing the door firmly behind me, leaving them alone in the quiet ruins of everything they had stolen.